This chameleon will not escape the hunter chasing it for long. Along with dozens of others, it will soon find itself at the bottom of a small burlap bag. In a few days, in Japan or the United States, people will pay a fortune to own a representative of this rare species. More than $1,000 for an animal bought from the hunter for a small fraction of that cost. Here, in Madagascar, the country's biological heritage is sold off every day at bargain basement prices. The unique and unusual fauna of this exotic island is in heavy demand among collectors. In just a few hours, this animal wholesaler will have filled his order. How many frogs, chameleons, and lizards has he studied, measured, and packaged in his lifetime? Every year, in the forests of Madagascar, tens of thousands of reptiles, amphibians, and insects are caught and transported like inanimate objects. Today, trade in living animals is a growth industry throughout the island. For the people of Madagascar, collecting and selling animals is a way to feed and clothe their families. Of course, this intensive hunt contributes to the disappearance of dozens of species. But what else can they do when their very survival is at stake?
Dad?
Yes?
Look at the chameleon.
You see another one? Oh, yes.
Yes, and look over there, Dad. There's another one.
That does it. You're the champion.
Understanding how this trade in animals is organized, measuring its impact on the island's fauna, and investigating potential abuses are the goals of Jean-François and Isabelle Lagrot. For the past few weeks, these two French veterinarians have been crisscrossing Madagascar, along with their two children, Julie and Félix.
Look at its feet. See? It's got just two toes, sort of like it's wearing mitts. See?
No, on both sides of the two toes, it's got three.
Then it's got claws. So this is a very rare species from the south part of the island.
Isabelle and Jean-François have been traveling the world for more than 10 years. To educate the public about the preservation of wildlife, they publish articles and photojournals of their adventures.
Do you see the turquoise blue there under its throat? You see, Julie, why all the collectors around the world want to have one of these? That's why people catch them here to sell them, and they're sent all around the world.
Once, it would have taken months for a naturalist to collect so many rare specimens. Today, it takes just a few minutes to place an order over the internet. A supplier then buys the requested specimens from hunters, who don't hesitate when necessary to take them from protected areas. It's all a matter of price. During the 1990s, 5,000 to 20,000 chameleons were officially shipped off the island each year, disregarding quotas set by international conventions. And there is no way of knowing just how many more were smuggled out. One thing is sure, however. Little by little, this amazing Noah's Ark is being robbed of its living heritage the fruit of a long and remarkable evolution. Approximately 150 million years ago, Madagascar, an island the size of Texas, separated from the African continent. Cut off from the rest of the world by the Mozambique Channel and the Indian Ocean, the isolated country saw the development of unique plant and animal life. More than 80% of the island's vegetation, more than half of its birds, and up to 95% of its reptiles are endemic, found nowhere else on the planet. Tananarive, the island's capital and the investigation's starting point for Isabelle and Jean-François. Officially, some 20 exporters are authorized to participate in Madagascar's live animal trade. Some also have breeding farms, located for the most part on the outskirts of the city. Once or twice a week, exporters send large shipments to Europe, North America, and Asia. Isabelle and Jean-François are on their way to Ivato International Airport, where they hope to learn more about the workings of the wild animal trade.
Hello? The cargo hangar's over there? Thank you.
SOS, bonjour. Bonjour. Vous allez bien, bienvenue, ça va? Merci, oui. Bien,
While Jean-François speaks to the head of the airport's Water and Forests branch, Isabelle observes an inspection in the cargo hangar. The crates, each one containing about 1,000 animals, are carefully searched.
When did you pack them? Last night?
The goal of the Ministry of Water and Forests is to ensure that all animals shipped are accompanied by the appropriate permit. In Madagascar, animal trade falls under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Water and Forests, a government department that regulates and monitors trade in all animals, applying restrictions imposed for some species by cities, the Washington Convention governing international trade in endangered flora and fauna.
Those ones there are dry land animals?
Dry land.
So it's easier for them to travel. They won't become dehydrated?
That's right.
But still, you need an expert eye to tell them apart.
Yes. No, it's easy.
It's easy?
There are always special characteristics.
So here in this order, how many animals do you have in all?
In all, 2,000.
2,000?
That's right.
All non-quota?
Non-quota, yes.
So for these ones, there are no limits, no export quotas, just permits from the Department of Water and Forests. And you can export as many as Water and Forests will give you permits for.
Aside from the species that are fully protected or subject to export quotas established by cities, the Department of Water and Forests has full control over trade in most animals on the island. The question is whether or not they exercise that control wisely. Some animals it allows to be exported may be threatened with extinction. Others, which may be raised in captivity, cannot be legally sold. These problems result from insufficient data concerning the abundance, biology, and distribution of many species.
I went to visit the Department of Water and Forests. They have a little office there where they've made a few seizures at least. The agent at Water and Forests told me he doesn't think it's likely any animals are smuggled out, aside from those in the carry-on luggage, but not many apparently. And how did you make out?
There were a few cases being shipped by exporters there. So the water and forest people were making their inspection. They checked the species.
Where were they being shipped, the ones you saw?
There was one for Germany and one for the United States.
So those shipments aren't subject to international regulations.
No, there's no international regulations for any of those animals.
So it's left up to Madagascar to decide.
Right.
But just what kind of decisions is the country making? To find out, the two vets decide to speak to the exporters. But getting in touch with them proves harder than expected.
All right then, just tell him I called. Thank you. Goodbye. That was his sister this time. Yesterday it was his mother. 6310.
Allô, bonjour.
Hello, this is Isabelle Lagrot. May I speak to Mrs. Cervello, please? Oh, she's not there? Okay, were you able to give her my message yesterday? Yes? I was hoping to make an appointment with her. You don't know if she's got the time. She's very busy. Yes, I've already called several times. Okay, please tell her I called again. Thank you. Goodbye. Out of the 19, there's not many left. The other ones on this page either don't return my calls or say it's hard right now because they don't have the quotas. So there's no one else, really.
A little later on, another trip to the airport. A new opportunity for the two vets to pick up information.
Hello?
Hello, Jean-François. How are you?
They soon begin speaking to a young Madagascan, Elise Efezandri.
It's a shipment headed for where?
For what country? Canada? And you're the exporter?
No.
So what do you do? What's your job? You're a collector?
Collector and supplier.
Oh, I see. You're the supplier. You're the one who brought the animals?
Do you go out into the field?
You hunt the animals?
Thursday or Friday.
Thursday or Friday. Could we go with you into the field and see how you work? Yes?
Yes.
That would be great.
Three days later, the Lagrot family is ready for action. In a few hours, Isabelle and Jean-François will meet their contact. Since their investigation began, this is the first really promising lead they have encountered. The opportunity to follow the entire chain of live animal trade, from the forest where they are captured to the cargo hangar before they are loaded onto the plane. A unique opportunity to learn about Madagascar's entire animal management system. Amboasari, a village 175 kilometers from Tananarive.
There's Ellie over there.
Ah, yes, there he is. He sat at the crossroads, and he's at the crossroads.
Hello, Ellie. How are
Hi.
you?
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, thanks.
The bridges are okay?
They're okay. No detours, it's
Straight ahead.
The repaired?
repaired.
And how long to get there?
2 hours at the most.
Come on then, climb in. Let's go.
Their journey has only just begun, however. After 30 kilometers by road, they will have to walk for several hours to reach the camp of Eli and his men. Capturing live animals is always a race against the clock. Time is short, but the children slow the group's progress. As they approach the forest, Eli picks up the pace. He's got less than 24 hours to meet his deadline. It all began a few weeks ago when an exporter in Tananarive received a large order from an overseas customer. More than 2,000 animals, all non-quota. Mostly frogs and geckos that are still abundant in the forest of Fieranana. After obtaining a permit from the Department of Water and Forests to fill this order, the exporter hired the services of the collector working in the area. The collector then hired Eli and his hunters. Since dawn, small groups of men have been busy collecting the desired animals. So far, everything seems to be in order, except for one detail. The hunting season closed a few weeks ago. Yet these men are not poaching. They have a permit from Water and Forests. How is this possible? In fact, the permit issued by Water and Forests lists only the names and number of marketable animals and the export deadline, which is sometimes beyond the legal hunting period. But in Madagascar, the hunting period applies to ordinary game, not to reptiles and amphibians. Since the exporter doesn't have the facilities to keep his catch alive for long, he always waits till the very last moment to collect them all at the same time. In general, exporters choose to operate in November and December, at the start of the rainy season. During the legal hunting season, from May to October, the reptiles are much more vulnerable. During this period, many adult chameleons go underground to hibernate and are much harder to find than they are today. As night falls, Ellie, Isabelle, Jean-François, and the children finally reach camp.
That won't burn there. It's a tin can.
What's making that noise, Ellie?
That? Lemurs.
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 Yes, but what kind of lemur?
The scientific name of the lemur?
Varika.
Vericad. In Malagasy, vericad.
The microcebus, it doesn't make any noise?
Yes, it makes calls, the microcebus.
What kind of call?
The adult? The baby?
This lesson in natural science will soon be interrupted. After the diurnal species, the hunters turn their attention to the nocturnal ones. Madagascan law forbids night hunting, but this perfectly camouflaged gecko would be hard to spot during the day. At night, it shows up more clearly in the beams of the flashlight.
What's that one there? Lineatus?
Yes, lineatus.
Male or female?
Female. Female. Young.
I'd rather leave them on the branches.
On their ferns. It's so delicate. What a shame, really.
Oh, so gentle, your sleeve.
Here.
Just a few meters away, Ellie's penetrating gaze has flushed out a new prey. This is another gecko, Uroplatus fimbriatus, a species that hunts only at night.
Uroplatus fimbriatus.
One last meal before the hunters strike camp and deliver the merchandise.
Regarde, c'est du sucre.
I can't believe it. When I was following them, I didn't see a thing.
Me either.
When we were walking with them, I didn't see a single animal before they pointed it out.
Before the departure of Elie and his team, Isabelle and Jean-François want to find out exactly how many animals were captured.
What are these ones here?
Brookesia superciliaris.
Superciliaris?
Oh, he's beautiful.
And this one here?
In Madagascar, some exporters also breed animals. To do this, they obtain permits from water and forests to collect reproductive males and females, sometimes even of protected species that cannot be exported. The exporters hope the legislation will soon be amended so they can export the young born in captivity.
Look how beautiful it is, Julie.
Papa, tu prends? Prends, papa.
In one night, Ellie, how many fimbriatus can you catch? On a good night, how many fimbriatus?
20, 30,
20 to 30.
20 to 30, 40,
How much are the hunters paid?
85.
80 to 85, that's 400 euros.
That's a lot.
That's 400 euros in one night.
400 euros divided among 7 hunters, or more than $60 US per person for a single night's work. Not bad in a country where the basic wage is about $40 per month. Jean Fidel, the collector who hired Elie and his men, will transport all the animals to Tananarive in a bush taxi. While his assistant, Adrienne, draws up a list of the captured animals, Fidel examines the catch. The amount paid will depend on the size and quality of each specimen. To complete the order, he awaits other deliveries. When all the animals have arrived, he will carefully wrap them up. In less than 48 hours, all the merchandise will have left Madagascan soil. Downtown Tananarive, the next afternoon. Immediately following his return from the forest of Fieranana, Jean-François pursues another lead, an article in a Madagascan newspaper describing a record seizure of fully protected animals. To learn more, he has made an appointment with the police commissioner, Lily Joanna Nirina Mariosa.
What is it, tortoise trafficking?
Yes, of course it's tortoise trafficking. They've been placed under warrant of commitment.
Really? And the tortoises were going to be what, exported?
Based on what we saw here on the packaging, they were going to be exported.
When you seized the tortoises, were they taped up like that?
Yes, taped up like that, ready for export.
Okay, so to learn more, I'll have to go see Water and Forests then.
Yes.
All right then. Well, thank you for your time.
In just a few years, the traffic in living tortoises has grown considerably in Madagascar. Meanwhile, at Ivato, the inspections by Water and Forests have begun. Elie, who accompanied the animals on their journey from the forest, has been caring for those most in need. During their trip to the airport, the temperature rose above 40 degrees Celsius. But their suffering is far from over. Most of them will be traveling for 2 or 3 more days. Already, there have been some losses. But collectors are prepared for this. They always supply extra animals to replace those that die along the way. Water and Forests authorizes them to collect up to 10% more animals than originally requested. The inspection is almost over. Everything is in order, and the exit certificates will be stamped in just a few moments. Officially, there are no irregularities at the airport. Jean-François heads to the headquarters of Water and Forests, determined to learn what happened to the animals seized by the Quick Response Unit. Today, Julie's mind is also on tortoises. She has come to pick up the stamps her mother ordered for her last time they were in Tananarive. The design she chose is of the Geochelone radiata, or Madagascan radiated tortoise, a fully protected tortoise with magnificent geometric markings that has been the victim of intense trafficking in recent years. Jean-François' contact has provided him with some valuable information.
The confiscated tortoises were sent to a hotel not far from here where there's a guy with some animals. He told me that last year there was a big fuss with tortoises, a big tortoise seizure, and those tortoises were sent to Morondave, where they're being kept for now.
The Morondave region on the southwest coast of Madagascar is the vet's next destination. It is in the heart of baobab country, more than 700 kilometers from Tananarive. Here, Isabelle and Jean-François will learn more about another aspect of animal traffic, an aspect less spectacular than the dismantling of smuggling rings, but equally important. What happens to the animals after they are seized? Henri de Olm has been fighting for many long months to save tortoises that were rescued from smugglers.
Henry, hello.
Hello. Hello, how are you?
So, there they are, the tortoises. How many are there in all?
A little more than 600 tortoises.
600 tortoises, mainly radiata. And the beginning of their story, what happened?
Where did they come from? Were they smuggled?
They came from 4 different regions between Fort Dauphin and Tuléar.
So you mean there were 4 species of tortoise
From 4 different regions.
that were shipped?
That were captured, simply captured in the wild by people who were paid 2.5 francs.
And anyway, they are all fully protected species.
Yes, Appendix 1, Appendix 2 of the Washington Convention.
And they were captured, brought together?
Captured, thrown in sacks, any old way. They were transported in conditions you can't imagine, through the brush, on foot, whatever, without giving them anything to eat. And they arrived at the port. At the port there was a boat that took them.
Secretly?
Well, you couldn't really say secretly, because it would be pretty tough to smuggle 1,200 animals onto a boat. But anyway, they were loaded into the hold of a ship and spent some time floating around the Indian Ocean here. Then they arrived at Reunion Island. In the boat, they weren't fed, they weren't watered, nothing, because they were hidden, like stowaways. So then they arrived at Reunion Station, and there...
And there they were seized by customs.
Yes, they were seized.
So 1,200 tortoises seized by customs at Reunion?
Well, actually, 1,028 living tortoises and about 200 dead ones.
And so they were sent here?
So, about 800 were sent here, and in 1 year a couple hundred more died here.
And so you want to bring them all back to Madagascan soil as part of Madagascar's heritage.
Well, I think it's only right. They were taken from this country. It's not fair. These are Madagascan tortoises. It's only right to bring them back to Madagascar.
Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Under international law, animals automatically acquire the nationality of the country where they are confiscated. But often the new owners don't know what to do with them. That's what happened to these tortoises, which became French property after being seized on Réunion Island. To deal with this situation, endangering the lives of animals already in precarious health, Henri de Olme created an association aiming to repatriate them to Madagascar.
Antibiotics. What's the date today?
In addition to legal disputes, there are sometimes other complications, medical problems that Isabelle and Jean-François know all too well. When they spend extended periods beyond their borders, smuggled animals can fall prey to infectious diseases. 1 year after their return to Madagascar, the impact of their ordeal is still being felt. The mortality of the tortoises is still high, and their return to life in the wild could introduce new pathogens and parasites to their environment.
Maybe we should apply a little eye antiseptic. Okay, perfect. And we'll do both sides. There.
Oh, the mouth is okay. No mucus.
In any case, it doesn't look like it has any nasal secretions.
Open up its beak in front. There.
Good, now that's enough. There's another one there that's got something more serious? No, that's okay.
A few days later, Isabelle and Jean-François are back in Tananarive, following up on another hot lead.
I think we'll have to get him to talk about not just the tortoise smuggling, but also where they come from and who's asking for them. That's what's important.
Yeah, because he's got quite a few here. How many did he say?
He told me he's got them in 2 places, if I understood correctly. Where we're going now, there's not so many, maybe about 40.
And he's got more somewhere else in the city.
He's got at least another 150 in another location.
Not taking no for an answer, the 2 vets have tracked down a smuggler of radiata tortoises.
Where is it? Which way?
I don't know. Let's look over there. I think it's...
The trafficker, a dealer who buys animals from local hunters, has agreed to meet them at his home. If he is caught, he risks a long prison term.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
Will you show them to us? Can we see them?
They're little, eh?
Little.
Little radiata.
Radiata.
They're magnificent anyway.
And where do they come from?
Tuliar.
Tulia. Did you catch them yourself or did you buy them?
I bought them.
So you buy them from hunters who come from Tuléar. How much?
5,000 francs.
5,000 francs. That's less than €1.
And you sell them to traffickers?
Yes, between 50 and 75.
Between 50 and 75. You buy them for less than €1 and you sell them for 10?
Many traffickers came to Tana?
Many, many, many.
Many?
The water and forest authorities are corrupted.
Corruption.
Yes, corruption.
So smuggled out of the country.
Smuggled.
What nationality?
Thai.
Thai. Many Thais?
Thai mafia.
Thai mafia?
And Japanese.
Japanese. But how do they get to Japan? How?
Big ships at sea, sailboats.
Oh, at sea there are big ships waiting for the sailboats.
Ships that never come near the coast, they stay out to sea.
Smugglers pay a lot of money at the airport or ships.
Okay, export lots. Do you know if, aside from the radiata tortoises, any other animals are smuggled?
Unifora.
Unifora, they're very rare. If you buy a Unifora, you pay how much?
700.
700,000.
700? You buy a Uniphora, 100 euros. This one, €1. A Uniphora, 100 euros.
Uniphora tortoise is more rare.
The rarest of all, the last big export, that was in March, right?
380 in 2002.
380 tortoises stolen. Uniphora.
Uniphora.
And who did that? Who?
When you think there are thought to be just 1,000 left in the wild, 380 of them stolen?
Who stole them?
Thai.
Thais.
After these explosive revelations, Isabelle and Jean-François want to learn more. Majunga, a seaport town in northwest Madagascar, is the last stop on their investigative tour. Like most large ports on the west coast, this town, just a few nautical miles from international waters, is a hive of smuggling activity. Here, with a boat and an obliging captain, any type of cargo can be removed from Madagascan soil. After questioning several crew members, Isabelle and Jean-François see their worst fears confirmed. Smuggling animals out of the country is child's play.
In fact, based on what we've learned, there are tortoises passing through Majunga that are collected around Majunga and taken south by dhow to Morandab and Marambe, and then leave on sailboats on catcher vessels to fishing vessels that are out to sea and that never dock at all.
Ports, by definition, are practically impossible to monitor.
Particularly here. And they come and they go.
Very difficult to monitor all shipping.
They're loaded by hand. There's really no authority here to oversee it.
At the end of their inquiry, the two vets have one more question to answer. They want to know if breeding can halt the disappearance of rare species such as chameleons and geckos. But along the way, another discovery awaits them. Today, in Madagascar, brush fires and slash-and-burn agriculture are ravaging all parts of the island.
Felix wants to touch.
Yeah, do you see that, Isa?
What a shame.
Look, there's the backbone.
Yes, it burned in the fire.
You see, Julie, when there's a fire, all the slow animals, they can't escape.
There's just a few bones, that's all.
Every year, more than 2 million hectares of land go up in smoke like this.
Those are larvae of big butterflies?
Yes.
A disaster, eh?
Brush fires do enormous harm to the fauna of Madagascar. This destruction of their natural habitat, coupled with the capture of animals for sale, has a dramatic impact on all endemic species. This is the last visit for Isabelle and Jean-François, a breeding farm whose owner, André Pereiras, occupies a special place in the world of animal trade. A self-taught entomologist, André has been fascinated by Madagascan fauna for half a century. He believes in the sustainable exploitation of Madagascar's animal resources.
All the animals are in small cages.
Ah, yes. So the male is a different color.
According to Andre, breeding is the best way to reduce the excessive hunting of some species of wild animals. Captive reproduction of common species, such as frogs and lizards, is standard now. But chameleons are more difficult to raise. Andre raises 7 species here, including 2 that are particularly threatened.
Tu as vu ça?
So this is a chameleon that you think can be bred.
But all the little ones you have in this cage and all those you keep outside, they're all born here, right?
All those were born here. I've had up to 2,000.
Really?
Of course, I had an aviary that was 80 meters by 45.
Really?
A female lays 50 eggs, and 50 times 15 makes quite a lot of babies to raise.
So if people wanted to sell more, they'd have to raise them.
They'd have to raise them. For that to happen, there should be much stricter monitoring by water and forests. Because if they only came every 3, 4, 5, or 6 months, there'd be no point. You could do anything you wanted. You could replace them.
You could catch new ones in the wild, sell what you had, and pretend that you raised them.
Of course.
So you'd need very strict monitoring to follow up on the breeders to make sure the animals were really being born in captivity.
Absolutely.
Given the difficulty in distinguishing chameleons born in captivity from those caught in the wild, Water and Forests prefers just to limit exports to 4 species still abundant in nature. This discourages the development of breeding farms, the only effective way to protect wild fauna over the long term. Although he has no export permits for his species raised in captivity, Andre has proven that it can be done. His hatching rate is about 60%. Richard Ralizafi, the man in charge of raising the farm's chameleons, possesses an invaluable quality: patience. These eggs of the Parsons chameleon, a protected species, will hatch in less than a week. But it's been a long, slow process. For almost 2 years, the time it takes them to mature, Richard has checked on them 3 times a week. This extremely long incubation period may explain the lack of interest in breeding displayed by many exporters. Lacking sufficient infrastructures, investments, and skills, many are unwilling to make the effort. It will always be easier for their hunters and more lucrative for them to steal what they need from the wild. But how long can this continue?
La caméléon. Look at the chameleon. Look at him. He's soft. You want to touch him? Touch the chameleon.
The high birth rate on this farm proves that breeding is feasible. With more favorable legislation, it could even provide a source of jobs and revenue for Madagascar. But Andre knows there is another, more large-scale threat to the fauna of Madagascar.
Do you think we can continue to take animals from the wild to sell without causing the disappearance of some species?
What has hurt these species enormously? I arrived in Madagascar in 1954, almost 50 years ago, when there was at least twice or 3 times as much forest as there is now. The forest has been carved up absolutely everywhere. And it's not the exporters who have hurt these species, it's the destruction of the forest. So to protect the species, we must first protect the forest.
The message is clear. Protecting the animals will mean conserving their forest habitat and effectively regulating their trade. Before leaving Madagascar, the 2 vets insist on visiting the special protégés of Andre Pereiras. Several groups of lemurs, Coquerels sifaka, live a few kilometers from his farm in a 30-hectare forest. a sanctuary he founded.
You see, Felix?
Oh, he's so cute.
You can pet him. Gently, Felix.
While the rest of the world must be content with only 3, the island of Madagascar is home to more than 30 species of lemurs. Begun centuries ago, the inventory of this temple of biodiversity is far from complete. Yet Madagascar could one day mourn the disappearance of its treasures. An area of forest the size of a football field disappears here every minute. The poorly managed exotic animal trade only adds to the impoverishment. A new action plan, implemented with international authorities in 2003, gives new hope. But will it be enough to cauterize the wounds of the great island? Only time will tell.